So what we're going through today is what is ArcGIS Enterprise, server roles, base deployment, name user license model, and not forgetting ArcGIS Enterprise capabilities and the data store. So you may ask, what is ArcGIS Enterprise? It's the server software for data management, mapping and analysis, consisting of a system of components that create a WebGIS that helps you to collaborate and reach more people through any devices. And now, ArcGIS for Server has been rebranded to ArcGIS Enterprise. ArcGIS Enterprise is now the new product name at 10.5. But that being said, we are leaving the names of the products pre 10.5 exactly as they are. What I would like to point out here is that ArcGIS Enterprise consisted of several individual software components that have been designed to work together. Now, ArcGIS Server without 4 is not going anywhere because it's the main foundation software component of ArcGIS Enterprise. It is the engine that powers everything, just like it was, and now plus even more new capability. Portal for ArcGIS enables access control, collaboration and sharing, and most importantly, content management. ArcGIS Data Store is the vital data storage component, and we will talk more about that later. And the ArcGIS Web Adapter is to integrate with your existing web server and security stores. And each of these components has a separate installer, and these are not new components, all already available at 10.4. A very new and important change at 10.5 is the concept of server roles. Esri has made some changes with the licensing model to better align with the best practice of workload separation, and this gives your organization and you two important benefits. So first is the flexibility to mix and match what is required, and second is the scalability and the freedom of expansion as and when you need. And the best is all at the right moment. So this diagram shows a single software component you installed called ArcGIS Server. And this has 5 roles that it can now take depending on what license you apply to it, and boom, it will gain different capabilities. Amazing, right? So, talking about capabilities, the GIS server role is what most of you have already been familiar with when you think about traditional ArcGIS server capabilities, like your mapping, features, geocoding, and we have now additional server roles, like your image server for serving and processing your collections of imagery, including on-the-fly raster processing and mosaicing, your geo event server for real-time analytics and IoT, GeoAnalytics server new at 10.5 and perform analytics on big data using distributed computing, and Business Analyst server, which has the targeted tools, apps, and data for site selection, market, and territory planning. The key point here is you just install one thing, your ArcGIS server, and you just plug and play off with your relevant license, which enables a server role. And this means you can now isolate your workflows onto separate machines without needing to also have a GIS server license on these same machines. Now we'll be going through base deployment for ArcGIS Enterprise. A foundation setup of ArcGIS Enterprise will consist of a number of these components shown on the slide configured in a certain way, and this is what we call a base ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. The base deployment gives you all the same capabilities that you get with ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Server that you're already familiar with, providing a WebGIS in your own infrastructure, and this is the recommended future deployment pattern that Esri will be building on. And look, you can still use a standalone ArcGIS server, and I think it's very likely that most of you still do, and that's okay because it is still fully supported at 10.5. However, moving on, ArcGIS Enterprise has been designed so that newer capabilities will require this base deployment as a minimum architecture to connect to, With a base deployment, there is now essentially 3 tiers to consider. So first is the web tier, your web adapter. Second is your application tier, your portal for ArcGIS and ArcGIS Server with the GIS server role applied and designated as the hosting server, along with your data tier, which is your ArcGIS Datastore. An early decision you need to make is how many machines do you need to spread this across. All of these components could be deployed on a single machine. However, it's much harder to scale it if everything is installed on one machine, right? If you anticipated you need to scale out in the future, that's an indication that you should start separating out all the 3 tiers. I also want to touch on some alternative approaches for installing your components over just running separate individual installer files. So with 10.5.1, the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder is included that will take care of setting up your base deployment on a single machine for you. For cloud deployment to Amazon Web Services and Azure is very straightforward, using template images and cloud builder apps to walk you through the process, including deploying to multiple machines. And finally, we have Chef, a popular tool for automating your deployment of infrastructure, be it on cloud or enterprise or premises, or Linux, Windows, or 3 servers, 300 servers. We have provide cookbooks for you to deploy your ArcGIS Enterprise to launch base deployment, and you can tailor this to your own environment.
Now I'll be walking through the changes to the named user license model in ArcGIS Enterprise. So before ArcGIS 10.5, you have only one type of named user. At version 10.5, to match the ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Enterprise introduced 2 levels of named user. The previous named user role is now what we call a level 2 named user. So you can do everything from publishing content, creating apps, groups, manage other users, and perform analysis. You can still fine-tune these privileges through roles in ArcGIS Enterprise. What's new in version 10.5 is a level 1 named user. Many Esri customers have reported that they wanted the ability to share private content more broadly within their organization. As much as we would like that if everyone in your organization will be creating contents and performing spatial analysis, the truth is some users just need to view private content. Therefore, this level 1 is a cost-effective way to share those important information products in your organization without giving out control over what information is seen by whom and how it's being used. So level 1 user allows user to view private content, but they cannot create them. So within your organization, you will allocate a more powerful level 2 user to the administrator, publisher, users who want to create apps or use native apps such as Collector and Explorer for ArcGIS. Then you might want to allocate a level 1 users to users who might just need to view private content. I would like to emphasize that if your ArcGIS Enterprise is behind your organization firewall, you can still share maps and apps to everyone else in your organization without the need for a level 1 or level 2 named user. Now, many Esri customers are confused over the function of ArcGIS Datastore in their base deployment. So they are asking, like, what is it? Why do you ever need it in the base deployment? So this section will elaborate on ArcGIS Datastore and the role it plays in the base deployment. So there are actually 3 different types of ArcGIS Datastore. The first 2 are required for the base deployment. So the first one is the relation Datastore, which is what is enabled the hosted feature service layers in your portal. The tile cache is for your 3D hosted scene layers. And finally, the spatial temporal data store is a NoSQL data store for handling huge volumes of data, and is only required by the GeoEvents and GeoAnalytics server role. The ArcGIS data store is not equivalent to your enterprise geodatabase, as they serve quite different workflow. The enterprise geodatabase is still where you should be managing your authoritative GIS layers. It supports versioning, archiving and replication workflow, You can set up topologies and complex data model, store network and geometric data set, address locator, schematics, annotation, and parser fabric, and many other more items that ArcGIS Datastore does not cater for. A key difference between ArcGIS Datastore and the Enterprise Geodatabase is that you can only access hosted feature layer in ArcGIS Datastore via web services. There are no direct connection to the underlying database within ArcGIS Datastore. The hosted feature services rely on the underlying relational database within ArcGIS Datastore to do all the heavy lifting and stream the data directly to the client. So the biggest advantage of the relational ArcGIS Datastore is the ability to publish thousands of hosted feature service on a single machine with far lower memory footprint than traditional feature service. And this is exactly what you need to enable the ArcGIS Enterprise user to achieve truly self-service mapping capability. It allows them to create their own layers without performance impact on your GIS server, which is serving the authoritative data sets. Just because you have designated the GIS server as a hosting server, you can still publish traditional feature and map services that reference data in your enterprise geodatabases. For most organizations, there's a strong case that you will still need to use both ArcGIS Datastore and Enterprise Geodatabase. The ArcGIS Datastore is targeted at your portal user and gives them the full capabilities of WebGIS, such as if the user wants to upload a shapefile to the portal and publish as a hosted feature layer, this data actually end up in a relational ArcGIS Datastore. A base deployment also enables your portal user to use a wide range of analysis tools. For example, clipping, dissolving, joining, interpolating, drive time, and many more. The results from this analysis will result in hosted feature services that are all stored in your ArcGIS Datastore and not in your enterprise geodatabase. So hopefully, this will clarify the purpose of the relational ArcGIS Datastore within your base deployment. Now we'll go through this video to demonstrate the power of those WebGIS capability that is enabled by the ArcGIS Datastore. So in this scenario, we have a web map that the GIS team has shared within the organization, and the layers in this web map are sourced from Enterprise Geodatabase and served from the GIS server as a traditional feature services. For example, in this example, the layers are the planning boundaries in Singapore. So these layers are maintained by the GIS team, who will use ArcGIS Desktop to edit the data directly from the geodatabase, making use of its versioning workflow and QA procedures. Suppose a portal user have a CSV file containing data that she wishes to perform spatial analysis on. This portal user doesn't want to go through the hassle of asking the GIS team to publish this layer to the server and have the team notify her when the layer is available in portal. And the GIS team will also not want to give this portal user access to publish services on the GIS server, as there are many other business critical applications that are using these services. With a relational ArcGIS Datastore in place, this portal user can simply upload the layer from a CSV file onto the web map and create this layer without impacting the GIS server. She can easily change the symbology of the web map, just like she can do it in ArcGIS Desktop. She can also use the analysis tool provided in Portal to perform spatial analysis from the layer, such as aggregate points within the boundary, as it's shown in this video example. Now what you have to do is to wait for the analysis to complete, and once the analysis complete, the results are saved to the ArcGIS Datastore. So I would like to mention that ready-to-use app such as ArcGIS Maps for Office allows users to easily share content back to the portal, and this shared content are also stored and served up in ArcGIS Datastore.
So I know that there's been a lot of interest in the new insights application. So what I'm going to show you here is to perform some spatial aggregation analysis But the key point is not about the functionalities of ArcGIS Insights, but rather is how it relies on data store. So let's now perform some spatial aggregation analysis. What you can see here is the aggregated dengue cases per planning area rendered using proportionate symbols. And behind these cards, after the analysis, you can find some useful statistics such as sum, average, etc. And all of this analysis relies on an ArcGIS Enterprise based deployment, which makes heavy use of the ArcGIS data store for storing interim and new results. So I know a lot of you has been using Web App Builder, and Web App Builder for ArcGIS embedded within Portal for ArcGIS component now supports custom widget. Means you can leverage on the large number of custom widgets released both by Esri and the developer community. So how do you do it? Very simple process. Once you find a widget you like, you download it, place it on a web server like IIS, you log into your portal as administrator, and you can now add a new portal item type, which is to register your custom widgets. Then you need to point it to your widgets manifest files and give it a suitable title and text as shown on the screen.
So in conclusion, the key takeaway for this presentation are the new server roles which in relation to ArcGIS Enterprise are for scalability. And the ArcGIS Enterprise based deployment will be required to gain the full capabilities of WebGIS, which is a portal with a hosting server that has an ArcGIS data store. You can tie multiple ArcGIS server sites with different server roles applied to your base deployment for additional capability. So changes to the named user license model allow better access control for private information sharing within your organization. And finally, ArcGIS data store is required for the newer functionality of WebGIS, but does not replace your enterprise geodatabase. So for more information about ArcGIS Enterprise, you can visit the documentation resources on Esri's website. You can also take a look at the functionality matrix within the documentation to learn more about the full capabilities of ArcGIS Enterprise. Thank you very much, and that's the end of our presentation.